Let's go over the basics of transforming. So I'm going to just create this is a custom shape, just holding the space bar to position it where I want it. And so when we do a Control T, we can resize. So if I want to maintain the proportion, I hold my Shift key and I can expand it this way. I can also rotate it. Some of the other things, if you want a little bit more control, so if I just do Control T, I'm limited here in terms of what I can do without understanding all of the keyboard shortcuts. So one of the tricks you can do once you're in your transform tool is just right mouse click, and you'll see a lot of choices here. So if I want to flip horizontal, isn't going to change this image, but if I do flip vertical, I get it perfectly 180 degrees upside down. I'm going to undo. So I can rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise, 90 degrees clockwise. Those are pretty self-explanatory. Scale is size. Rotate, we already know what rotate means. Skew is a little bit interesting. So when you hit skew, most people think something's supposed to happen, but the only way you can skew is to grab a corner. And notice it's only moving that one point. So depending on where you grab is what's going to happen. So that's what skew does. So I can manipulate the different, these are called anchor points. I'm going to undo that. Let's do Control T again. Distort. Notice I can move multiple directions with distort. Perspective works two angles at the same time. So if I grab the bottom right-hand corner, notice the bottom left-hand corner will also adjust. So you can change the perspective here of your image. And then lastly, we have what's called warp. And warp is pretty interesting. You have all of these different points that you can adjust. So notice I'm getting more of a curve here. So have a lot more control. All of these different points, even the intersection of lines, can warp your image into something totally different. These are directional handles, and there's no simple way to explain how it works other than just sort of going in and experimenting. If you want to warp something and you don't want it to be like totally wild, when you do go into the warp, on the option bar, there's some presets. So if you want to change it more to an arc shape, it'll do it for you. And that way you don't have to adjust all the points. So there's a bunch of different ones in here. You have some other control options as well on the options bar. So don't just think that transform is only about size and rotation, because there's a lot more. And again, the only way to get those options to show up is to right mouse click while you're in the transform option, or you can also go to the menu. This is a little bit more cumbersome, but it's exactly the same thing, same options. So if I go into warp here, I can either manually warp or I can choose from my options on my options bar.